You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. And finally, our third sponsor is 988. The Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is a direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. That's 988oklahoma.com. And now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. We are in a jewelry store right now. It's coming up to Christmas. My wife doesn't listen to this podcast, which is a good thing because she's going to get let down if she did listen to this podcast and expected jewelry for Christmas. Because there's a lot of really cool, shiny things in this store, and I have to walk through. I think I have to walk out of here without my glasses on, not to get sucked into some of the guy stuff that I'm looking at through the window too. But my guest today is Valerie Naifeh of Naifeh Fine Jewelry. Thank you so much for inviting me into the store, and excited to share your story today.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Mike. Lovely to have you here. Glad you finally made it in.
Finally made it in, yes.
I have an extra pair of glasses if you need them on the way out.
I know. It's going to be dangerous. It was funny. I had the conversation with my wife driving back from Tulsa this morning. I said, "What are we doing for Christmas this year?" And she's like, "I don't know. I mean, do you need anything?" I was like, "Not really." You know, you kind of get to that stage. We don't have kids. And,
right.
You know, you get to that stage, you're like, "I don't need anything." And, I mean, things that I want are not what you generally get for Christmas. You know, I'd love a Porsche 911. Yes. I don't think my wife's going to buy me one of those for Christmas. That's something I got to work hard for. But, you know, a lot of people think about jewelry, especially over the holidays. And you guys done a great job of decorating this place for the holidays.
Thank you.
It looks fantastic in here, and there's a lot of British theme in here at the moment. I think a lot of the, you know, I have no idea what you call those things behind us, but the top hat figures, whatever, what are they called?
Oh, the Nutcrackers.
The Nutcrackers. They remind me of back home for some reason.
Oh, that's right. And where are you from?
Wales in the UK.
Oh, that's right. You did mention that over the phone. Well, I have to really thank my husband George for the decorating. Mm-hmm. His entire career, he was in event planning in New York and Las Vegas, and then here for 10 years, and he's a master florist. So I don't have to micromanage that anymore, which is fantastic.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah, it makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. Well, usually it's the other way around, right? Usually it's like, you know, you don't expect, there's very few stories that the husband is in the industry that he's in, and he's very, very organized and does the thing. That's not a guy thing, right? Usually. It's
typically not, but he's one of the most organized people I've ever met. So
usually latched onto a good one.
Creative and organizational, which those two things normally don't go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, as you know, and as the listeners know, we like to set some context. I mean, how does this all... Did you grow up like every other young girl and think, you know, diamonds are a girl's best friend, and I just want to have a diamond one day?
You know, not at all. Not at all. If you had asked me when I was, you know, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, if I ever thought I'd be in the jewelry business, I probably would have, my eyes would have crossed, and I would have started laughing, because I grew up a tomboy. I was the middle child in between two boys, and you know, I was not interested in jewelry at all. My father was very, very creative. And I say was, he and my mother have both passed. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but my father was a true Renaissance man. He painted and sculpted beautifully and was self-taught. He had a fabulous baritone voice. He sang occasionally with the Tulsa Opera Company. He sang frequently with the Tulsa Philharmonic. He was professionally in radio and television broadcasting. And so we were just, all of us, my brothers and I were raised in a very, very creative household. And I really was gunning to be an architect. And along the way toward being an architect, I changed my mind and thought I might segue into graphic design. And then along the way to becoming a graphic designer, one of my professors at the University of Tulsa recommended me for an apprenticeship with a local jewelry designer. And she needed someone to help her. She was beginning to get some notoriety and her business had some legs. And anyway, I was the one who went and interviewed and got that position. And I showed up at the interview fully prepared to say thank you very much, but no thank you, because I just thought jewelry, I don't even know how to make jewelry. And I told her that. I said, I've never had any of the jewelry making classes. Well, that's okay. Anyway, it turns out that she didn't just want clerical help or sales help, which is what I thought she was wanting. She actually wanted to teach someone how to make jewelry. And that part fascinated me. And so I accepted the position. And the first day I sat down at a bench and carved a wax model, I just was flooded with joy. And I knew I had found my home.
Yeah.
So those light bulb moments don't happen very often,
Right.
Sometimes people will go their whole life and never have that. So I feel like I got really lucky.
Yeah. And so how old were you at that time?
I was 19.
Okay.
It was the summer of my sophomore year in college, and I needed to work. My dad was trying to put 3 kids through college, and he couldn't afford to foot the whole bill. And so I had to pay for half of my tuition and my books. Yeah. And when I was able finally to move out of the house, I had to pay, for room and board. So I was a worker.
Take it back a little bit. What initially gets you into the design, the graphic design, the architect side of things? Like, why that first?
So my father, everything that he painted or sculpted was, he did a lot of still lifes. He started out with acrylics and then went into oil painting. He was that type of artist who could literally sit down and sketch you with pen and paper or pencil and capture your likeness exactly. And my older brother and my younger brother had that same ability. But when I sat down and tried to draw something or someone, it kind of ended up looking like a cubist painting. And it's really interesting. And I tell a lot of young artists or young creatives this. At that time, I thought I wasn't any good.
Yeah.
Right? I thought that because I couldn't look at a person or a dog and draw it exactly like that, I thought, that just means I'm not any good. Yeah. So, but no, it just really means I have a different way of seeing things and I have a different point of view. And most oftentimes the artists in life who become the most successful, even if it's after their death, like Van Gogh, it's because they had a different point of view. And maybe people don't understand it at the moment when they're working, but then, it informs so many other things and causes so much change and a shift. So I just, I thought, I can't draw and I don't really paint very well and nothing ever looks like what it's supposed to look like. But I loved architecture and I would spend hours when I was a kid drawing floor plans, for like my dream house when I was 12 years old. So anyway, I just like the spatial. I think I like the spatial nature. Yeah. And what really happened too, I didn't understand until that first day I sat down and carved that wax model. I didn't understand I was supposed to be working with my hands. That I needed, because I became the model maker for our company, and I ended up making for a 3-year period of time. I ended up probably making 60% of the models, for the jewelry we made, and loved it. Really loved it.
Did you draw the floor plan of the house you live in now?
I designed the backyard.
Okay.
I moved into a new house 2 years ago, and I completely scraped the backyard.
Yeah.
And I had a vision, and yes, I do a lot of the decorating in the house.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you have in this moment then, and you're 19, you're a sophomore in college, you have this moment that, you know, you think, wow, like this is a bit of a surprise. I'm working with my hands. I really enjoy building and doing this. Maybe, you know, I guess at the time it's probably, you know, yes, it's an income. I enjoy it. It's a job. I need it. It wasn't necessarily, I'm going to do this the rest of my life.
You know, that part came slowly. I really enjoyed it so much. And by the time I graduated from the University of Tulsa, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So as a backup plan, I took the LSAT just so I'd be prepared. And I in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a year. I'm going to work at this full time for a year. And at the end of a year, if I'm still learning, still growing, if I still like it, then I'm going to stick with it for another year and not go to law school. And I did that every year for 6 years. And finally, after the 6th year, and then I moved to Oklahoma City from Tulsa to open up a second location for the lady I was working for. And so after 6 years, I thought, wow, I guess this is my gig, right? This is it. So I worked for other people for 14 and a half years and then started my own retail store in 1998.
Yeah. So when you are, you know, like every year, you're like one more year, and you get to that, and you, like I said, you move to Oklahoma City to open a second store, and it is becoming a career. When to that point, then when do you think, one day maybe I'll do my own, before, you know, basically doing multiple apprenticeships for the same person, right? You're just learning all this time.
Yes.
And then you think, you know what?
Yes.
I should do my own thing.
You know, business ownership isn't for everyone. And without saying, you know, it's not for everyone. And I don't know that I would have gone off and started my own business, except for the fact that after 14 and a half years of growing in my career and in my profession, I really, really wanted to work at a very high level, especially in custom design, because the 14 and a half years before I started my own company, I was doing custom design the entire time for clients, even though I did not have my own staff or jewelers who I employed. Sure. And at some point, I just wasn't able to really service my clientele the way I wanted to. And I felt constrained. You know, everybody who owns a business has their vision. And they need their employees to buy into that vision, right? And so at some point, my vision for what I wanted to do just didn't jive with the employer I was working for at that time. And that's when I just knew I need to just go do this for myself or not do it at all.
Yeah, and I guess because you've already moved to Oklahoma City to open a second store, you kind of go through everything. You know what opening a store is like, and then you've been doing this for 14 and a half years. You've built up, you know, a clientele, a base, a friendship, a community around. They knew you, they knew your name too.
I had people, by the time I opened my first store, which was actually a little lease department, a sublease department inside of Balliet's, which most people who live in Oklahoma City know what Balliet's is. And it used to be located in 50 Penn Place, and now it's in Class and Kerr. And in 98, I opened up a little sublease department inside of Balliet's and was there for 4 years. And we just had a great run there. And I probably would have stayed, except that we just outgrew the space. And then they didn't have any more space to give us. Yeah. So then we migrated north to Cassidy Square and built out a lovely corner space there. And we were there from 2002 until June 14th of 2019. Okay. And, you know, like you said, I had clients who had followed me and who were with me, and it gave me a lot more confidence. It's very different if you're new in a community and you just try to open a store, a jewelry store, because we find the jewelry business is really a relationship business. A lot of people might think that it's simply transactional, but there are so many things we do beyond selling jewelry. there's so many other things we do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and back to what you said earlier as well about the design side of things. You build up such a trust and you build up such a relationship with your clients that I'm sure there's been plenty of times, and I'm sure it happens, it probably happens a lot more now than it did at the beginning, is people come to you and say, I have a vision, I have an idea, will you go design something for me? Which, as an artist, gives you so much confidence and so much, at the beginning it's probably nerve-wracking, right? Like,
yes.
They really me?
Yes.
Yeah, you want me to do it?
Yes. Yes.
But that's, it's just part of growing and then part of building that brand that you have.
Yes. And I've always been known for custom design, and I didn't employ my own jewelers until about 2006, I want to say. And we started out with one, quickly added another one, and I just can't even believe it. We've got 6 full-time jewelers back in our design lab now, as well as a woman who does stringing and wire wrapping for us. And we are busy. But, and just back to your point, I used to get so nervous when people would ask me to design something for them. And I don't want to say I don't get nervous anymore. I do, but I don't know how many thousands of pieces I've designed and made, in the last 39 years that I've been in this business. And I think what I still enjoy about working with individuals who bring design projects in is you learn something from them. And inevitably, somebody gives you a challenge, and you have to think about something in a way that you've never thought about before. So it keeps you fresh and creative and on your toes. So,
do you have a specialty on the design side?
Oh, golly. I suppose the way to answer that is we mostly concentrate in working in high carat gold, 18 karat yellow, 22 karat yellow. I also work in white gold and platinum. But my personal love is the richness of the high carat gold. And in my own line, I just have a passion for colored gemstones and pearls. So in my own line, you see lots of color, lots of pearls. And I'm really good at things that are asymmetrical, which is kind of funny because what I've found over the years is probably 70 to 75% of people I work with want things to be symmetrical. They want everything to be even. If it's a ring, they want the left side to look like the right side. They want the top to look like the bottom. But I'm really, really good with things that are asymmetrical, and I love that. I find a lot of fun.
With the design side as well, do you see, because the beauty of jewelry and especially the person, especially if it's a personal piece to someone, you might be designing, and Oklahoma is such a melting pot. I mean, I'm from the UK and I'm doing this, right? Like, there's so many cultures and stories and just people here. Do you travel a lot to get a lot of your inspiration, or if someone comes in, you might not know their background or their culture before, you might not be aware of it, and then you learn something, you think, I want to go to Japan, or I want to go to the Middle East, or wherever it is. Like, as you've gone through your 39-year career of doing this, I mean, there's so many questions in this, but let's start with the first one. Do you travel a lot to get inspiration?
At certain times in my life, I've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
I have a daughter who will be 28 next month, and when she was younger, I didn't like to travel so much. Prior to having children, I actually had the good fortune to travel to Asia quite a bit. The lady I apprenticed with and worked for and moved to Oklahoma City for was wonderful and took me on gemstone buying and pearl buying trips to Hong Kong and Bangkok. And I had the good fortune to go with her multiple times over a period of 7 years, and found, in the beginning, I had no desire to go to Asia. I remember as a young child growing up, China was completely cut off from the world. And I remember when Richard Nixon, this would be back in the 70s, broke through and was able to go and meet the Chinese president at the time, what a big deal that was, and nobody knew anything about China. And then Hong Kong, of course, until 2000 was a British colony, but it was just so far away, and so it was nothing I ever thought about. I had been to Europe once and fell in love with it, but then suddenly I get to go to Hong Kong and I get to go to Thailand, and it was just fabulous. Just fabulous. And fast forward, I've been back to Europe many times, been to Mexico, and every time, my daughter and I took a trip in 2019 to Malaysia and Japan, and Japan was quite fascinating. I really realized that what I thought I knew about Japan wasn't true at all. And so it was fascinating, learning a lot of things about that country. And to answer your question, yes, every time I travel, I just am inspired, either by the colors or the smells or the architecture. I would say, Venice, Italy is one of my favorite places just to lose myself and walk, because there are so many cultural influences that came into that place in the 16th and 17th centuries, multicultural influences, and you find a lot of interesting art and architecture in Venice. So I always carry a little notebook with me, little sketch pad, little notebook, so that I can just quickly, jot something down so that I can remember it.
I've been to Japan once, and it was exactly the same feeling of, this was not what I expected, right? And it's so weird going to a place where there is no English on any road signs or anything, and you're just like, I am in the middle of nowhere right now. But the people are so nice.
They are.
They love fashion, and it's quite outlandish fashion, right? It's like, I remember walking through a mall or walking through a shopping center place, and it was as if the people walking towards me, as if they'd gone into the store, seen a mannequin, seen the entire outfit on a mannequin, and gone, I want the whole thing. Yes. And then walked out the store.
Right, the shoes, the handbag.
Yeah, and also pets and strollers was another different thing. I was like, well, this is crazy.
Yes. Yes.
But crazy.
Yeah, it's I think sometimes, and not to get away from talking about jewelry, but just culturally, when, especially for Americans, because it's a big country, and Canada borders us to the north, and they speak English unless you're in Quebec, and Mexico's to the south, and but most Americans aren't traveling south of the border. They might fly to Cancun or fly to Puerto Vallarta.
And they're staying at a hotel.
But we're just not exposed to a lot of different other cultures and languages. And you get to some place like Japan, and you think you just, I don't know about you, but I kind of tended to throw all of the Asians into one category.
Sure.
The Chinese, the Japanese, the Thai, the Malay, and they're all different. And then the Japanese culture was so different than the Thai culture and the Malaysian culture, and even different from the Chinese.
How when you went with the lady you used to work for, how old were you at that point?
I believe the first trip I made, I would have been 20. Okay. I would have been 20 years old.
Such a great experience
20 or 21.
To be that young.
Yeah, maybe 21. So, a long time ago, but maybe 21.
But to be that age and go over there and see that part of the world and jump on probably 2 or 3 flights to get there, like, that's such a great adventure.
It's yes, definitely at least 3 flights. And really, the jewelry industry is such an international industry. And what it really helped me see, too, is the history of jewelry in America is very, very different than the history of jewelry in the European culture and in the Asian culture. And the United States is such a young country. And for so long, we had so much space. We're running out of space, but we still, compared to most other cultures, we still have so much space. And for so long, things have been so inexpensive and so affordable. But in other cultures, let's just take Burma, for example, which is now a communist country, and they've gone back to calling it Myanmar. the Burmese, as well as the Thai people, as well as the Cambodians, as well as the Vietnamese, all of these countries produce sapphire. These are countries where you find sapphire and ruby. And for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, these people have understood that a single beautiful ruby or a single beautiful sapphire of a certain size, they understand the value of that, because these, other than Thailand, these are countries that have been occupied, and at any given moment, suddenly the currency may have no value. And having that beautiful stone or stones sometimes can buy your way to a better life, either in another part of the same country or to another country. You think about during World War II and the hundreds of thousands of Jewish people who literally left European countries with pockets lined in diamonds and gold and had to start their entire lives over again. And it was portable wealth. They left everything behind and came to the United States or, Great Britain or other countries. And these things were able to help them get reestablished. And in the United States, we don't necessarily look at jewelry like that. We just look at it as more of a commodity.
Sure.
And so for me, it's fascinating just to see how jewelry has had a place in our history, in our culture, and our place in time. It's not just ornamental and decorative.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and kind of from my side, like growing up in the UK, the first thing I would see, or the thing that I grew up and just, when someone says jewelry, you automatically think of the royal family, and you automatically think of the crown and the diamond encrusted swords and that kind of ceremonial type of jewelry.
Yes.
Not necessarily, and the royals have obviously they wear great jewelry,
Right.
but as a guy growing up, I wouldn't think of that. I would just see the queen in her crown or whoever.
Right.
Oh, that's, Princess Diana, whoever it was, that was in the crown and stuff. Like,
Right.
oh, that's kind of cool. But again, because I think most guys are just oblivious to that stuff.
Sure.
But also to your point, the history, I never even thought about the history side of it, and it's I get the sense that history is a huge passion of yours too, especially related to the jewelry side of things.
It is. I didn't study history a lot in school. I actually was an English literature major with a minor in political science. Never got the degree in architecture, never got the degree in anyway.
Didn't go to law school.
Well, that's okay. I ended up in my happy place.
Yes.
But I love watching documentaries. I love reading. I read a lot of nonfiction. Okay. And I find it fascinating studying different gemstones and cultures. And, interestingly enough, I was asked several years ago to speak to a group of individuals. And in preparing my talk, I'm very passionate about antique beads.
Okay.
And many, many years ago, I really didn't know anything about antique beads. And I was in an antique store in Dallas, Texas, one afternoon with my late husband. And when the antique dealer found out that I was a jeweler, he said, "Oh, I want to show you something." And he pulled out some of the most beautiful beads I'd ever seen. He said, "Well, are you familiar with Z beads?" And I said, "No, I have no idea what Z beads are." And he says, "Oh, well, this is a really rare set of Z beads, and they're even cataloged over here in this book." And he brought the book out and he showed me. And I said, "Well, what does something like this cost?" And there's just 7 beads, 7 beads. And he tells me that the set of 7 beads is like $26,000. And I couldn't even believe it. I had no reference. And I thought, I've just got to find out more. Like, what are these beads? And why would they be $26,000? And where is the market for this? I ended up buying a much less expensive set of Z beads from him for $500. And then, anyway, come to find out, beads are literally the very first currency that we know of in human civilization. Okay. And so we know from archaeology that we find beads that are 50,000 years old, and this would have been portable wealth. And these beads would have probably been strung on some gut or some, buffalo hide or, whatever the people were hunting and killing and curing, and it just kind of goes from there. And so I'm fascinated with how jewelry starts as one thing, but then becomes another thing. But it's all about status and wealth. In the end, it's all about status and wealth.
Always, right? That's,
right.
You know, it's I've got to have got to have a bigger diamond than the last person.
Right.
And it's sometimes those that know,
yes,
right? It's like the watch world, you know, those that know, and those that don't would, someone could walk in with just a giant plastic rock on their finger, and everyone else would be, wow, you're a man.
Exactly.
It cost me $10.99 from 7-Eleven down the road.
Exactly.
Moving things forward then, this store, it's the first time I've ever been in here, a lot bigger than I expected, because when we're located, you're in the corner and you don't expect it to go as deep as it does.
Right.
Beautiful layout, massive store.
Thank you.
Looks really good. Tell us, for people who, like myself, who are listening that have never been here before, tell me a little bit about kind of, the architecture lover in you that designed the store, that has all the layout, you have everything in certain places. Like, you can go as nerdy as you want on this, because I'm really interested in how you lay things out, and even like you mentioned earlier, the smell of places too. It all adds into the experience of coming in and buying your significant other something. Maybe you're treating yourself after a big business deal, or whatever it is.
So this store for many years was an iconic dress shop by the name of Ruth Myers.
Okay.
And Ruth had this store in 1987 when I moved here to Oklahoma City as a 23-year-old. Sadly, she passed away. And when her family and their partner decided to close the store, I was so shocked that the store had closed that it didn't even dawn on me, oh, this could be my future home. At the time, we had been in Cassidy Square for 16 years, and I had been looking for another location, but there just wasn't anything that really worked for me.
Yeah.
So I had thought about remodeling my store, but then Ruth Myers closed, and I was driving past with my Starbucks cup of coffee one morning and saw the for lease sign, and it went, bingo. So anyway, negotiated the lease, got in here, did the demo, and it turns out that this space is 5,700 square feet. Now, I did not really want all 5,700 square feet,
sure.
But the way that the space is configured, it was very, very difficult for the landlord to split it up. And so we came to an agreement, a really lovely agreement, that my lease arrangements would be a little bit more friendly if I would just take the whole space. So I did. And, being that, the architect who never got to practice, I spent hours and hours and hours with the plans, just with tracing paper, just figuring and refiguring. And of course, it makes it difficult. There were a couple of load-bearing walls that couldn't be moved. Obviously, you don't want to have to move a lot of plumbing because that gets very expensive. So it's like, well, I think we're going to have a bathroom here because there was a bathroom here. And so let's just leave a bathroom here, but make it bigger. It was, in the end, I can't believe how hard it was to fit everything in because we had so much. But, the more space you have, you're just going to use it all.
You're going to fill it somehow.
You're going to fill it somehow. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is we dedicated over 1,000 square feet to our design lab and production studio. And we made massive upgrades to our manufacturing equipment. And so a lot of people are so excited when they get a new car and they drive the new car off the lot. I get really excited about my new laser engraver and my new induction casting system.
Yeah.
And now we have 3D scanners. Back in the day, architects same way you do. I did take a whole year of drafting and technical drawing when I was younger, and everything had to be done by hand with the T-square or whatever. And now, if you bring a funky shaped pearl into us, we just put it in the 3D scanner. We spray coat it with a type of powder, and it rotates, and the laser reads it, and then it uploads it into the CAD program. And it's just so much fun. And I have 2 full-time CAD people. Occasionally, we do send some things out. I can't say 100% of everything we do is made here on premise, because like anybody, there are certain things we don't do well. And so, over the years, I've found fabulous people elsewhere. But I just love that design lab. I love all of our new equipment. We have a new laser engraver that just is unbelievable. I think it could fly us to Mars and back if we knew, how to make it do that. And then as far as just the overall decor of the store, my former location had kind of a loft feeling, and I really liked that. I am here usually 8 hours a day. Sometimes I'm here longer, and I want to feel really comfortable in my store, and I want our guests to feel just as comfortable as I do. I think it can be intimidating for people to come into a jewelry store, and we don't want that. I don't want people to be intimidated. And so I try to decorate the space in a way that it feels like perhaps you're in someone's living room.
I got that feeling.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So lots of natural elements. A lot of the artwork is for sale that hangs on the walls, although if it doesn't sell, that's okay, because I only pick things I like. And so
it's a very inviting place.
Thank you.
One thing I want to dive into, and something you kind of mentioned a little bit ago, was when you came to the idea that, hey, when I was at my job, I wasn't able to do things I wanted to do the way I did it, and that's why I started my own business. Dive into that for me. Why do you do the things that you...
What one of the things that was really frustrating to me as a young person, I have to tell you, I never ever thought I would end up being in jewelry sales. I started out at the bench, became a model maker, learned how to do casting, polishing, finishing. Was just starting to learn setting when I had the opportunity to move from Tulsa to Oklahoma City and open up a second location. And so I kind of had to decide, do I want to, do I want to stay at the bench, or do I really want to get out in front of people and be a designer? And anyway, I really was ready to move. So I came to Oklahoma City, and one of the things that was frustrating to me in selling situations is that my clients kind of looked at me as nothing more than a used car salesman. And, if you can kind of remember back in the day, those commercials, and you still see the craziest commercials, for cars on television. But there's something about it that made me feel really dirty. Okay. And I'm just being blunt. My job was to design jewelry, but my job was also to sell jewelry that we had in the case. And I couldn't understand why sometimes I felt like people didn't trust me. Mm-hmm. And as my career progressed, it became really, really important for me to be trusted. And the more I worked in the industry, I saw that there were definitely best practices and worst practices. And as I got to know other retailers in different areas of the country, I saw that there were people, in my opinion, who were doing things better than others. And I wanted to be one of those people. And so it's very important for me to be transparent in everything that we do. And that starts with our staff. And so my entire staff knows we have to be transparent with each other. Otherwise, we're not going to be transparent to our clients. So transparency and honesty are a core of what we do. People come to us and they're trusting us because we do a lot of repair and we do a lot of refurbishment of pre-owned and antique pieces. And when you have someone who's coming in, and maybe what they have isn't that expensive, but maybe it's a 4th generation heirloom, right? And they're trusting us to take the best care of that. They're not taking it somewhere else. And so we want to care for that as if it was our own, and we take that very, very seriously. Likewise, I mean, people bring very, very expensive things in here. Maybe they purchased it from us, maybe they did not, but they trust us to do the ring sizing or to make the necklace shorter, and it's our job to make sure that they understand every single thing we're going to do, why we're going to do it, why it's going to cost what it does. And if the piece comes to us and has some sort of damage, it's our job to point that out to them, to explain, why something may have happened. And not everybody does it that way. I hate to say that. Not everybody does it that way. It's not just our industry, it's every industry. And it just makes me very angry. I remember a lady years ago came in to me. She had been on a cruise, and the cruise stopped in Hong Kong. And the cruise ship took them to some jewelry store, and she bought what she thought was a really expensive, fabulous piece of jadeite. And when she showed it to me, my eyes, I'm like, wow. And she told me what she paid for it. And, I took it back to my gemologist, and the next day I had to give her the bad news that it was basically a piece of plastic. Right?
Yeah.
And that just makes me very angry. And so there's a saying in our business that if you don't know your jewelry, know your jeweler. And I want people to know that they can come to Naifeh Fine Jewelry, and if we can't tell them on the spot, we're going to find out the answer. Whatever the situation may be. And we stand behind everything we sell and everything we do, 382 million %. And it's just, I don't ever want someone to say, oh, gee, I went to Naifeh Fine Jewelry and they sold me something that wasn't what they said they sold me, or XYZ. That's just not how we operate here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and reputation is everything.
It is.
Right? And regardless of what business you're in, I mean, especially in sales and when you're selling products, especially if they are, such products that carry so much significance to a certain family member, it might be rings, whatever it is, watches, anything. Most of the items in here people are buying because they're celebrating something. Yes. It's a birthday present, and they're taking that trust in you so that, they feel great gifting that to somebody else. And I've heard, we all heard the horror stories, it's online shopping channels and all the other stuff, and you get it and you're like, how much have I paid for this? And it's valued at what?
Exactly.
It's awful. And the sad part is you have to, that's the sad side of your business, right? When you have to make that phone call to say, look, you think this is the greatest thing ever, but it's a piece of Lego or whatever it is, right? That's the sad side.
Exactly. Well, these are, there's a lot of jewelry out there, and there's a reason why it's priced the way it is. I like to think that regardless of price, what we offer here is the best value. Yeah. We try to, day in and day out, offer a great value, whether it's in our products or our services. Yeah, 100%.
Well, obviously the holidays are coming up. Christmas trees are going up sooner. Basically, Christmas trees go up after Thanksgiving, after Halloween now, which I'm not opposed to. I was initially. I was a very strict, Christmas starts the 1st of December, and since being in the States and having my own house, it starts the day after Halloween. Our tree is up.
Ours is up too, and I would tell you I normally wouldn't put it up until after Thanksgiving, but we had to film a Christmas television commercial. So guess what? My husband George put up the Christmas trees at home and in the store.
Yeah. To that point, then, you guys do anything specific? Obviously, Small Business Saturday is coming up, and I feel bad calling you guys a small business. I walk in here, I'm like, you're not a small business. But when you define small business,
we're smaller than Cartier, and we're smaller than Tiffany & Company.
Exactly. So under those definitions, you're a small business. Obviously, that's next Saturday. But yeah, do you have any big plans for Christmas and Small Business Saturday? Anything coming up or things that you want to tell people?
Well, here's what I'll say. Our customers are fiercely loyal. Now, we know a lot of them travel and shop elsewhere, but we have the most wonderful, loyal clients in the whole world, and many of them even say, hey, I really want to get this, and I really want to try to get it from you. Can you get it from me? Which I just want to say to everybody out there, we appreciate so much. As far as Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, once upon a time we tried some things, and they just really didn't work for us. Our clients know where we are. Our new clients are finding us. We will be open on Small Business Saturday from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. And what everybody can expect when they come in here is a bunch of smiling, friendly people ready to meet and greet you and help you do whatever you need to do, whether it's just getting something cleaned, something repaired, or if you're really, we have something called a wish list.
Okay.
So a lot of times what the ladies like to do this time of year is come in and look around and put 3 to 5 items on their wish list so that then their boyfriend or husband can just kind of come in and know what they like and surprise them. In other words, it's not, hey, this is the one thing I like, please get it for me.
Right.
You know, it can be a range of items and a range of prices, and that way it's not so intimidating. So I would say Small Business Saturday and Black Friday would be great days to come in here and get a wish list started, right?
That's a great, I mean, for a guy who's terrible at shopping for his wife, that is the greatest thing ever, you know? So you come and pick a few things, and then I can pick one.
And the other thing is we have a terrific line. At my old store, I didn't have room for gifts, and we do carry a small but well curated line of gift items. And the favorite is our jingle knock ornaments. Okay. They are so beautiful. They are a higher end Christmas ornament. I think they retail for around $65 to $75 a piece, but they are spectacular. They are all made I believe in Portugal, all hand painted, and we have plenty for sale, but once they're gone, and we won't have them until next year. Okay. And they make great hostess gifts. They make a great family gift. I know I'm getting my daughter just got engaged and is getting married next year. Amazing. And I want to start giving her one every year so that she and her fiance, once they get married, will have a nice collection.
That's it's funny you said that. That's what my mother-in-law did for my wife. Was every year she would just buy her, as a kid, she would just buy her stuff. So all of the ornaments we have a date on the back of them.
Yes.
It just brings back that memory.
I know.
Right?
I love a family tree.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Right?
Okay, final two things. Little bit of consumer advice for people. What are your two picks? If someone's going to come in and one for the guy side, one for the girl side, what would you say are your two? And it could be anything. If a guy's coming in shopping for his wife, what would you say? Hey, I think you should grab this. And this is an extremely broad question and probably tough for you to answer. But one on the guy side, one on the girl side. What's either the best sellers or something that's really popular right now?
So for a man who's shopping for a lady, one line that we carry is called Jude Francis, and this line has been wildly popular for 20 years. And the reason is they make a variety of hoop, what we call a huggy hoop earring. And some have more diamonds, some have less, but they make charms that go on these hoop earrings, and then they make frames, and it's kind of a build your own earring scenario. And what's beautiful about it is the designers have done a great job at every year coming out with more and new and different colors and things that are current. And you can build your own earring in any price range, and once you buy that little huggy hoop, you never have to buy it again. So men love that, and they just come in every year for Christmas and anniversaries and birthdays and add a different colored charm or a pearl or a frame or the white gold or the yellow gold. And I started my set probably 20 years ago when we got the line, and I still wear it to this day. It's still very current. For the women shopping for men, we have a fabulous line of high-end writing instruments by David Oscarson. And then wonderful sterling silver, very masculine and cool bracelets by David Heston. He's from the San Francisco area, and he's a wonderful silversmith. And then my husband George, I gave him a lapel pin about a year and a half ago by one of my favorite German artists, Peter Schmidt. And he gets so many compliments that now we're stocking the lapel pins. They're all one of a kind. They're very affordable. And for the man who puts a sport coat on every day, or a suit and a tie, this can be a really fantastic addition to his wardrobe.
Awesome. What a great way to finish. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share your story and give us some great consumer advice. And I love, now I drive by here, I go to Cool Greens, or I'm going to Satin Grill, or whatever it is. The beauty of this podcast is that people drive by here, they see the name, they see the social media or the website, and now they know your story. They know that you grew up a bit of a tomboy. You thought the last thing you thought would be owning a jewelry store. You thought you'd be designing buildings, an architect, and here we are. 39 years of being in this industry, and you have this beautiful store, and continue to have that same fire and passion, not only just for the jewelry but for the history of it too, which is amazing.
100%.
So for people listening, I will link the Instagram page below and the website. They can go check that out and swing by. And if they do swing by, tell them that they heard you on the podcast, because that makes me feel great.
Please. Love it.
But yeah, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And finally, our third sponsor for today, the Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is the direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with the trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. It's 988oklahoma.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.